All right, welcome everybody. We are back. This is another episode of the Channel 135 podcast. This is a show we talk about our favorite things in life, movies, TV shows, and pop culture. I'm here with, a whole full screen of brothers in the house. We got Eric. What's up, man?
What's up?
We got Stacey from our rugby union podcast, The Kind of Rock. What's up, bro?
What's up, Bulls? Thanks for having me on for the first time this season.
Good to have you. And we got from our rugby league podcast, the 135 Footy Show, Bobby. What's up, man?
How's it, brothers? Good to see the full house. It was just a deuces last week. Just a pair of twos.
Always good to have a full house. Always good to have a full house. All right, man, we are here to talk about the penultimate episode of Knights of the Seven Kingdoms, the Game of Thrones spin-off series that's on HBO at the moment. Before we get into that, man, some bad news coming out of Hollywoods. Some sad news. Actor Robert Duvall has passed away. Long time. He was in his 90s when he passed away. When I saw the image on social media of that he's passed away, I was like thinking, man, that's a legend in acting, eh? That guy. Particularly for me, The Godfather, Part 1 and 2. Man, he was the man. That movie and Apocalypse Now. He's got that famous line on Apocalypse Now. I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
Oh,
and he's also the cop on Colors. He's the mentor to Sean Penn's character. You guys got any memories of Robert Duvall and his acting?
Man, I remember one scene in Reacher, the Tom Cruise Reacher, where he's the guy at the shooting range. You know, Tom Cruise is investigating what's going on, and if he can find evidence for, try to get the other guy out. And then they come to the shooting range, and Duvall puts the bullets in his ears. Like when Tom Cruise is taking the shot. I thought that was fucking crack up. But it's the actual thing, eh? Like back in the army days, they used to put the bullets in the ears, block the sound. Like, holy fuck. It always cracks me up, that scene. But yeah, he's got so many other scenes, eh? But yeah, that's the one that usually sticks out for me.
I enjoyed him. I enjoyed him in The Apostle. I don't know if you guys have seen that movie. He plays this character it's like one of those charismatic type evangelists type people, and he plays that character really well. I always remember this scene where he's having this full-on argument. It just sounds like he's nuts, going off, swearing hard out, and one of the people's coming to try and find him. He's, I forget what his name is, the character's name. He's like, oh, don't go up there. He's talking with God. And you can hear him like just swearing, and that's how he talks to God. Like he's doing this, like negotiating with God about life and what's going on in his congregation. And that was a crazy role for me, but it was relatable, because it's like, it's interesting when you think of evangelists and how they pray, and they're super getting into it, but this guy was McGuire, really getting into it, nitty gritty, swearing, and that's how he was with his relationship with God in the movie. And I found that role really cool. I enjoyed that one, and similar to all those other ones that you touched on, Cam. But he's been in a lot of those old school war movies too. Like if you remember all those 1960s, 70s war movies, like he started with John Wayne in the original True Grit. Like his filmography goes all the way back to like what was his first one? I think it said 1962, To Kill a Mockingbird with Gregory Peck. And if you remember that movie, which is quite iconic for a courtroom drama set in the 20s or whenever it was, like he started in that from way back then, and he's been around in so many films that when you look at it, it's like, oh yeah, shit. The Godfather, as you mentioned, MASH. He's been in so many. He's won so many awards. Lonesome Dove, I remember him in as a TV series. Yeah, so it's quite sad hearing of his passing.
Yeah, I'm similar to you. I think I'm with you though, Ken's my favourite role for him, Tom Hagen in The Godfather. And I was really disappointed that, his role wasn't reprised in Godfather 3. But if you think about that trilogy, I mean, the two movies, Godfather 1 and 2, are far superior. So he probably looks back and thinks, wow,
that movie sucked after I dropped out of it. But yeah, just that role, Tom Hagen, Consigliere, man, I really loved his character, particularly in Godfather 1. I thought he was, he wasn't actually one of the brothers, but his role was, man, he was an amazing actor, and I really liked his character. So I remember feeling that disappointment that they didn't reprise his role just in that last Godfather movie, but, in hindsight, maybe that wouldn't have been a good thing. But just, yeah, Bob, you touched on it. His filmography across multiple decades is sort of sneaks under the radar a little bit, but it's not until you have a close look you realize, wow, this guy's got an amazing body of work. So, unfortunate to hear his passing, but yeah, he'll always be Tom Hagen to me, man.
Yeah. It was only because they wouldn't pay him the amount he wanted to be paid to star in Godfather 3. So they had to.
I was trying to find it. I was trying to find out why he wasn't there.
Yeah.
Okay, that's why. Yeah, so, okay.
So that was sad. It might have made part 3 a little bit better than what it was, I guess. I don't know, but
they needed a different daughter. That daughter who acted in it, she was horrible, man.
Well, that was Francis Ford Coppola's own daughter, because it was meant to be Winona Ryder.
Yes,
she was supposed to be, but she got caught up on that shoplifting stuff, so that's why she got fired. She didn't make it. She didn't. That's why she didn't get. She didn't get to play her part. So that was like emergency casting. Francis's his daughter in there to take her place, but yeah, I just remember last couple of podcasts ago we were talking about the passing of Gene Hackman, and I think it was you that mentioned today, Bob, how all these actors we grew up with, like next minute they're old, the next minute they're passing away. And we're like, we remember these iconic characters these actors have played. So Robert Duvall, he's one of them. So sad to see, but nah, man, probably reminds us to go back and watch those movies again. Any other news in the small news here? Eric put up. So if you got Neon, I think we're watching a Knights of Seven Kingdoms on Neon. HBO Max is gonna split off and go in there. So I think they're gonna start a new platform, HBO Max platform here in New Zealand mid year. I think they're already started over in Australia. So it looks like they got three levels in Australia. They got a $12 one, which is HD with ads. Then they got a $15 one, which is the same, but you can have 2 devices. Then they've got a 4K one, which is $22 Australia. So I don't know if it's going to be the same pricing over here or a bit more. But at the moment, if you've got HBO Max, you're watching it on Neon, and I think it's $15 a month for HD with ads, and $20 a month with 4K with no ads. So I guess my concern is, are they gonna put up the price? But how do you guys feel about that?
I think, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Probably not the price though, but yeah, I wouldn't mind HBO Max. They got a lot of good stuff in there. So yeah, the majority of the things I watch too are from HBO Max. So that's probably a good thing for me. Don't know about you guys.
I can't afford all these different streaming services. So if they break off into another one, I'm like, man, you think you're sort of only watching maybe 1 or 2 shows from each one, and then you're sort of trying to justify the costs just to get a little bit out of it. I think if someone could come up with a sort of an overall service where you can pick and choose, I just want to buy this series from Netflix and then watch this movie from Disney Plus, and sort of just, instead of getting the whole thing, just buy as you want to use them. I think that might be the next iteration of technological advancements on these streaming services. So any technical people out there, if you can help me with our idea, you can make some money out of that for the network, that'll be great.
I think increasing prices just increases the likelihood of people going down those piracy routes and, illegal streaming and all of that sort of carry on. So I've heard. But, that's that's the risk that they take, is that, the people that do hang around and want to watch the stuff that's on HBO Max and are willing to pay for it, that's the opportunity cost of it, is that, yes, you'll get some people fall off and probably want to go and try and stream it illegally, or try and find someone else who has a membership or a subscription, sorry. And then you get the people that will just hang around and actually pay for it. So I don't know who does the stats or the metrics or the data analysis for that stuff, but man, it must be worthwhile, because they must have been losing money with Sky in that partnership why they've broken off.
Well, just like for me, I whatever's on at the moment, say for example, the Night of Seven Kingdoms on Neon, so I get Neon for that period. If I don't see any other follow-up shows during that month or so, I cancel it, and then look for other programs on other streaming things. Like, I haven't had Disney for a while because they haven't had any major shows coming up, so I've been off Disney for the last probably 2-3 months, and so for the others. But my primary one at the moment is by Apple. So I got Apple and Prime as my go-tos at the moment. But yeah, I just switch and go, turn off that, turn off this, turn on that, kind of thing, and kind of helps a bit. It's a bit confusing after a while, but if you're like me and you would like watching your TV shows or your movies and shit, yeah, you alternate between each thing pretty quickly.
Well, you and Bob into your sci-fi, so Apple will be the place there, because there's a lot of sci-fi on there.
Hard.
Mm.
There's a lot.
I tried to cancel my Prime subscription, and for some reason it just takes you through all these hoops and circles, and it's like, and then I thought I had cancelled it on the Prime website, and then it's like, you do not have a subscription. I was like, I do have a subscription, because you're taking out $10 out of my account every week. So it's like, Jesus Christ.
I tell you what, every time I try and unsubscribe to Prime, I don't, because I look at it, it's only $9 a month, isn't it?
Yeah.
$10 a
Yeah.
month. That's the cheapest of all of them, eh?
I think so.
So
Yeah,
I think, it's only $10 a month.
Well, good luck trying to unsubscribe, because
Yeah,
Adds up.
I've Googled like trying to unsubscribe from Prime, and apparently they've been taken to like court and things over in the States.
Oh,
because they've got
Amazon, Amazon.
Amazon Prime,
Yeah.
and it's
Oh,
like
shit.
they let you run around in all these hoops, and then you get so ho-ha with trying to unsubscribe. You're like, oh, just like what Cam said. Well, it is the cheapest, and it's only $10 a month. And it's like, you add all of the million people that have got Prime
$10.
and are saying
Yeah,
that
bro.
every time they try to unsubscribe, it's like, wow, $10 million.
Yeah, millions of dollars.
Okay, well, what's everyone's number one? Eric, yours is Apple.
Yeah, it's probably Apple.
Stace, what's your number one?
I'm a traditionalist, man. I stick with Netflix the most. I know there's a lot of garbage on there, but yeah, I probably, when I turn on TV, I turn that one on first.
It's a quantity, not quality for Netflix. Eh?
Yeah, that's right.
But
Law
I
of
find
averages.
Prime's got all the old school stuff, eh? Heaps of old school,
Yeah,
old films on Prime.
They're distributing those other ones like MGM as well, eh?
Yeah, but you got to pay extra for those.
Yeah, sucks. Not doing that.
And Bob, what's your number one?
Yeah, mine's Netflix too, bro.
Netflix.
And then when there are series that I want to watch on something else, then that's when I'll go and jump on whatever's screening the one that I want to watch.
That's probably the one I want to cancel, eh? But I've been finding it hard because there's been a lot. Well, to me, there's been a lot of good shows. I was like, shit.
At the moment, it's Neon, just because it's got HBO on there. It's got all the DC stuff on there.
Yeah.
All right, boys, moving on. Let's get to what we're here for. We are here to talk about A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. We're up to episode number 5. If you haven't watched that episode, we're going to do a spoiler alert. So stop this podcast right now and go watch the episode and then come back and listen to us. We're going to break down the Channel 135 episode recap.
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert!
All right. In the Name of the Mother, directed by Owen Harris, written by Harry Martinez and T. McCall and Ira Parker. The trial of Seven begins. In the first charge, Arian knocks Dunk off his horse. In a series of flashbacks to Dunk's childhood, he and his friend Rafe scavenge from a battlefield. They return to Flea Bottom in King's Landing and pickpocket from Alistair, a city watchman. Dunk and Rafe attempt to buy passage to the Free Cities in Essos, but cannot afford it. Alistair corners them and takes their money. Rafe steals Alistair's dagger, but he notices and slits her throat. Arlen emerges from a tavern and kills Alistair, saving Dunk, who then follows Arlen on his travels. In the present, Dunk duels Arian on foot until both men collapse from injury. After Dunk falls unconscious, Arian declares him dead. Egg begs Dunk to get up, and the crowd chants for Dunk as he stands. Dunk and Arian resume their duel until Dunk gets the upper hand. Arian yields and withdraws his accusation. In the aftermath, Beesbury and Harding are confirmed as killed. Dunk pledges fealty to Baelor. Raymond and Pete help Baelor remove his helmet, which Maker struck with his mace during the trial, revealing a fatal wound. Baelor collapses from his injury and dies in Dunk's arms. And that was your 135, channel 135 episode recap. Man, since it's your first time here on this series, Stace, man. So what's your take on this series as a whole, like compared to what you've seen before in the Game of Thrones universe?
Yeah, it's a bit different. I've enjoyed the show overall. And yeah, like I said, it's a sort of different to the rest of the shows in the series. So it's not like a smaller Game of Thrones. And it's not this sort of dragon-heavy political chess match that you see on House of the Dragon. But it really feels like a character-first, sort of like a road story. And it's set inside that brutal world. So that's where Game of Thrones, it's thrived on sort of shock and the scale of it. House of Dragons leans into the dynastic decay of the Targaryens. This show feels a bit more quieter. It's a bit more human. And it's almost old-fashioned in the way that it's in its storytelling. So prior to this episode, at least, we hadn't seen any great battles or spectacles. Instead, it's allowed sort of conversations, glances, moral choices to do the heavy lifting. And so far, it's just been primarily about values. And that sometimes can be a bit risky television. But it works because I think the main characters, Dunk and Egg, they're quite compelling. And they're just sort of a different perspective into Westeros. They're outsiders almost. They don't command armies. They don't have dragons or anything like this. They're sort of reacting to power in Westeros as opposed to sort of wielding it like we see in the other two shows. So I think when you just do that comparison between House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones, this feels a bit more closer to the classic mythical storytelling. You know, you've got a knight, you've got the squire, there's a test of character sort of stuff, not so much about who's going to be ruling, and more what kind of man, what kind of knight will you be. So I like that that shift compared to, say, the other ones. But just focusing particularly on this episode, this one at least, it felt more the most sort of like Game of Thrones that we've seen all season. And I mean that sort of structurally. So if you look at Game of Thrones and that universe, historically, it's usually the penultimate episode where everything explodes. So this is the episode where the tension that's been simmering underneath all season finally starts to pay off. You get the big battle, major consequences, shocking death normally. And then the finale normally becomes about that emotional aftermath, the political reshuffling and the setup for what's happening next in the upcoming seasons and stuff. So this penultimate episode, episode 5, it followed that exact blueprint. So up until now, we've seen the series has been quite restrained. There's been a lot of driven by the characters, quite gentle compared to Game of Thrones standards. And importantly, up until now, no major deaths. So that's unusual in these types of Game of Thrones stories. We've been sort of conditioned to expect, if you get attached to someone, they're probably not safe, they're probably going to die. So coming into this episode, that was in the back of my mind. I listened to you guys last week and I just thought, someone no one's died. Someone significant is going to fall. No, I didn't know who, and then we got it. That tension did feel a little bit deliberate, like the show was sort of waiting and building up to this moment, and then it just happened with Baelor, Baelor Targaryen, and that death, it changes the tone of the entire series. It just reminds us that this is still Westeros. Honor doesn't protect you. Good intentions, it doesn't guarantee you survival. And no matter how grounded the show feels compared to its predecessors, it still lives in a world where even the most respected figures can die suddenly. And it's just going to be interesting to see how that unfolds in the future. So I really liked the episode and the show overall.
Yeah, it's true what you said. Like traditionally in Game of Thrones, each season the penultimate episode is always a big battle, and then the last episode is like the aftermath, and when the dust settles, what happens, and then it leads on to the next season. But and sometimes in some series, not just Game of Thrones, but the penultimate episode can be just the one big flashback. And I thought that this episode, being the penultimate, has both. It fits in a flashback and a battle, and it doesn't within half an hour. So I don't know if that was a good thing. It's something I've never seen before, but yeah. But if I put this question to you, Eric and Bob, because we've watched each episode gets better and better. It's better than the last episode. What did you make of this penultimate episode?
This episode was crazy. We spoke about it last week, how for such a short run, like half-hour episode, or 35, 40 minutes, I think what's the longest, they pack a shitload into these episodes, man. And you talked about the flashback and the big fight scene. That was probably as gory a fight scene as I've ever seen on Game of Thrones, and probably way more realistic. They had that point of view sort of perspective. Dunk breathing super heavy inside his helmet, and the flippin' limited vision.
Yeah.
Like that. That's kind of like a PlayStation game, right? Like you're playing, and that's the feel that you sort of get, because you can't see jack shit except for a freaking mace or what are they called, Morningstar, come flying at his face. But holy crap, the armorer who made his armor made it solid, because he copped like 2 or 3 shots from that Morningstar in his face, the back of his head. I was thinking, so it doesn't look flash, has limited vision, but it's solid, man, and it does the job in that kind of setting. One of the things I took away from this particular episode is that whole culture of knights. Like, it doesn't matter if you're family, or it's probably a religion, actually, just the way that they went about honoring this tradition of this, trial by the 7, even trial by cobbets we've seen in the past. But this was out of it, because now you've got family members fighting against each other, and you'd think, okay, Baelor talks about the King's Guard not going to do anything to him because of their oath, but his brother and the way that they were fighting to the death. We talked about it last week, Cam, where it was like, so this is an opportunity for Maker to make a move, man, to try and get rid of his older brother who's next in line. And even though it played out that way, I don't think Maker went in thinking like that. He went in thinking, oh, well, stuff it, you're on the other side. I'm here to uphold the honor of my son in this trial by combat, and to make sure that, he comes out of this in a positive light. And so I'm just going to do everything I can to protect my boys, because he's got both of his sons in this battle, right? We don't really see much of Darian, or whatever his name is, and I don't know whether he even fought anyone, or whether he fell off his horse and just stayed on the ground and let the King's Guard protect him. I don't know, but you see the seriousness of this because of what happened to Baelor, and because he talks about, oh yeah, I caught one of my brother's shots in the back of my head, and he is very strong. I was thinking, so he's strong, all right? He was trying to kill you with that shot, and he ended up actually doing that. There's a lot of imagery that I probably didn't catch the first time I watched it. You watch it back again, and they've got all those callbacks to stuff that's happened earlier in the series. where you see that dynamic between Dunk and Egg, and you're kind of hoping that he didn't hate him too much, and he sort of comes back and he's like, "Oh, you better be here, and you better not run off," and then he barks at him, "I'll come hunting you with dogs," and I was like, "Oh yeah, that's call back to the earlier line," and then all of that other stuff at the beginning, the formation, and you see the bird's eye view. Crazy episode, because it's probably one of the most realistic fight scenes, just because of the fact that it was from Duncan's perspective. There was a bit of fog, so you could only see really what was in front. But then those random freaking horses just running out of nowhere, and he'd get bumped, or he'd get hit, or he'd get protected. It was a very real feeling sort of battle, and you've had battles like that in Game of Thrones and in House of the Dragon, but that kind of felt like it was cinema. It was a movie. You're watching something happen. This felt like you were in it, and it was happening to you because of how realistic they did that point of view type filming of that last episode. So yeah, man, I mean, yes, penultimate episode, man, I don't know how they finished strong, because that was a really super strong episode. So if they continue on with how they've just been building each episode better than the last, and the last one's probably going to be super kick-ass with a massive cliffhanger for us to head into the second season, which I think they've already filmed, right? Or they're in the middle of
I
filming.
think they started for the second season. Yeah.
Oh.
Was this the best episode out of the whole thing so far?
Yeah, I think at the moment this is the best episode at the moment. The thing that got me the most was the flashback. I didn't expect the girl to get murdered. I mean, I think I did, or I think I did expect someone to die. But the thing that I felt when she got murdered, I was shocked. I was like, shit. She's only been on the screen for probably 7 or 8 minutes of that story, and just super connected to the characters already. So I was like, far out, that's fast.
Nah, I knew she was gonna die because you never see her.
Yeah, that's right. That's what I didn't figure that out until later. But I was just like, how quick I felt emotionally attached to the character already, and it's just like, shit, that's pretty mean. Like, there's backstory in that. The other thing I noticed too is with the episode, especially when Doug finally triumphs throughout his trial, you get the sense that the people hate the Targaryens. Like, they just want them to fuck off and leave them alone. And you get that when Doug's trying to get the guy to basically say uncle, and when he finally does, everyone's just going ballistic, yeah, he beat him. So I was just like, shit, this, yeah, that was a good episode. The battle reminded me of the Battle of the Bastards, in a way, where John's getting covered by all the soldiers in that kind of scene. It was kind of familiar to that. How he couldn't get out, but in some way he does. But yeah, this is the most Game of Thrones episode ever, bro, straight up. So yeah, I think it's out there, eh? It's a bloody... I think they gave it a 9.8 out of 10, so bro, it's probably, yeah, it's the best episode.
No, I'm just speaking about Jon Snow, because on Game of Thrones, he was my favorite character, man. He was the man. Hey, Jon Snow. And the actor that plays Jon Snow, was it Harrison?
Yeah.
What's the name? I'm watching this other TV series right now called Industry, and he acts in that series, and he's got a character in that. He's a fucking asshole. He's like thickhead. He's weak. He's the opposite, extreme opposite to what Jon Snow was, man. And it's kind of ruining my view of Jon Snow just because he's in there.
So there's two different characters, man.
Two different characters, yeah. But man, it just shows he's a good actor.
Yeah. If they can play that kind of range and you get that kind of feeling, that's a fucking awesome actor, bro.
Yeah, he's a bit of a dick in the industry. But yeah, man, you know what, for me, I thought when that flashback scene first started, I was thinking, oh no. Why did they have to ruin I want to see the battle. I want to see the battle. You have to go through all this flashback stuff, because I was thinking, is this the origin of blah, blah, blah? They have to go through this. So that's what I was thinking.
I was thinking the same thing.
But then No, I think they pulled it off. Hey, I think that flashback story, it was good, especially when for this girl, Rafe, she shows up. You're like, oh, who's this girl? I think she's gonna die because we didn't see her again, you know. And she does, you know, but in a brutal way. Her throat gets cut, and then this is the first time we're kind of getting into the Game of Thrones kind of area, where things are like brutal and dangerous and all that kind of stuff, huh? Because this is a brutal episode. Like you mentioned there, Bob, like that battle scene, it's brutal. Like you get a point of view of Dunk in the helmet. You don't know what's going on. You know, he's getting smashed every which way. He gets stabbed. The first thing what happens to him, he gets stabbed, right? He falls off his horse. And, you know, he's getting wasted. And then he gets that smash in the head and it goes blank, and that's when it goes to the flashback scene. But that flashback scene, you know, it kind of made up for it, especially when it tells the story of how he meets Arlen, the old man. And remember how he comes out? He comes out swinging with his... he's drunk and he comes out swinging and he kills those two guys.
You know, one thing I thought about with that flashback scene, because, you know, you're thinking about Rafe, and she does this, there's this real important thing where they show the class difference. So there's that dude who dies, and she goes, oh, do you know any words? We're supposed to say a prayer or something. And they say, oh, well, what's the point of that? And she goes, oh, well, so then they don't have to come to hell with all these bombs and the flea bottom poor people. And that just shows the difference in class. So it's quite hard if you're a bottom feeder like them, it's hard to break out of that class, which is where Dunk's really from. And there was a really subtle part which I liked just in that flashback, where Rafe, she tells young Dunk the story about pudding. You know, how no one forgets the wrongs that are done to them. You know, and people might smile, they might move on and let time pass, but eventually they come back for their vengeance to get their dues. So that story, I thought it lands a bit differently when you think about the battle and what happened to, is it Aerion, the young Targaryen there? You know, because Aerion, he doesn't strike me as someone who absorbs humiliation quietly. You know, he got humiliated in the battle. He got forced to go up and say that he quits or whatever, and he withdraws his accusation. You know, so when Rafe tells young Dunk, hey, look, no one forgets, people come back, like what happened to their friend Pudding or whatever his name was. You know, you think about who Aerion is. He escalated, you know, to a trial of 7 out of his own pride. He didn't want to do a trial by combat 1-on-1. He attacked that young girl, that actress, you know, just out of his own entitlement. You know, he fights not just to win, but to dominate. So for him to yield in that battle, you know, that's not just a loss for him. That's like a public wound. So how he deals with that, the process of that humiliation, how he processes that, you know, does he reflect on it, or does he let it simmer and let it come back? So how that plays out in the future episodes could be quite interesting. So I thought that pudding story, I don't know if that's sort of thematic foreshadowing that, you know, this ain't over. This guy's going to come back again for Dunk a bit stronger. Maybe not seek revenge immediately, especially with Baelor's death. You know, there's the complications of the political fallout and all the rest of it. But guys like him who have this massive ego, they don't forget that type of embarrassment. So, you know, how that plays out. I thought that story of pudding and how people don't forget and they come back for their vengeance, I just thought that might be foreshadowing for what might happen with Aerion and Dunk down the line.
Yeah, do you guys remember that little part where Dunk and the girl they go back to sell the stuff, right? And they put all the shit on the table, and then when they're about to leave, the guy mentions, hey, this is was it Targaryen something? You know, the one of the straps or whatever. Because Damien's he mentions Damien, like his rule is over now, or his raid or whatever. He goes, we can't sell that here. I was like, oh, that's a cool reference to House of the Dragons. I was like, shit, true. So it probably during that time it's probably died out, and then it's kind of like, nah, fuck those guys. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yep. I think one thing that out of that flashback as well is, you know, they tried to show, you know, how much Dunk holds that knight, I can't remember his name, in such high esteem, and how highly regarded he is to him. So for that knight to tell him to get up, You can tell this guy's Dunk is wasted, man. And you'd be okay if he just lay there and just thought, man, I'm done. But I think they did that to show, if that guy tells you to get up, you're going to get up because he holds him in such high regard. So I think that part of the flashback was an important part for the scene. Sorry, Bob. Carry on.
And I was just going to say that whole flashback scene is them probably being really true to the source material, because in the book, I think it talks a lot about how Dunk had grown up in Flea Bottom and his sort of adventures with Rafe and Pudding and that. And so it's a layer of Dunk that we don't know about, but the book talks, like, they dedicate a whole chapters about his Flea Bottom adventures and how it is that they try and get out of that place, because that's what they're trying to do in the flashback, and that's all they were trying to do in the book, was to, just to be better, go somewhere else. Surely there's going to be a better place than being at the bottom rung of the lowest ladder. Man, they're not even at ground level. They're underground. They're underneath a goat's freaking stable or whatever you call it. And so that layer of Dunk and that influence and seeing his friend die and, the death that sort of happened around Dunk when he was young and how it was that he reacted to it, attaching himself to Arlen real young and early when he had nothing. Like, had he not done that, he probably would have died a nobody in Flea Bottom. But that flashback really sort of cemented that whole bond that he had with Arlen, and why it was so strong, because he had absolutely nothing, and he had nothing to sort of live for except for the old man that saved his life in Flea Bottom. And, had Arlen not come out, he would have been killed by those city guards or whatever they were.
City watchmen.
Yeah, city watchmen. And so, that layer of how close he really was with Arlen and why it was he was that close, because it kind of starts just from nowhere, and he's just burying this guy that he used to squire for, and you kind of don't really know the dynamic between him and Arlen and how it was that they got so close, even though he treated him like absolute shit. And did he really knight you? Because there's that scene where Raymond's getting sort of knighted, and then he has a bit of a flashback to what we think is Arlen knighting him, but then Arlen does that. I don't know the words. Like, I don't really know the words. Are you a knight if I didn't say the words? Because, Raymond's there getting knighted by the Baratheon guy saying all the words, and he's kind of just out of earshot because he's worried that they're not going to have enough people for the Battle of the Seven. Here's a flashback to Arlen, who's like, I don't know the words either. Are you really a knight? Did you really get knighted? If that's your sort of thought, that flashes back to Arlen. But yeah, man, it was crazy episode. This was it was cool because it starts to build that legacy of Duncan the Tall, right? Like, this is the birth of Duncan the Tall and his legend, and we get to see it firsthand and how it was that it came about. You also saw that mercy that he has, and he's Duncan the Tall and he could kill you without a second thought, but that's not his first go-to. He's lives by this code that apparently no other knights around him are, and that's something that Baelor saw in him, and that's why he came and joined his side. But it'll be interesting to see what happens in the next episode without that sort of royal backing that he had in the previous episode, because now that guy's dead, and it's like, what's going to happen now?
Yeah, when Arlen comes out of that tavern or drunk and he goes Berserker Wolverine on those city watchmen, I was thinking, oh yeah, that's what a knight does, man. He protects the innocent. So he's doing a knight thing right there, and I was thinking, oh yeah, sweet. But it's funny, how he's just going on his way and he's singing to himself. He's like, rah, rah, rah. Oh, drunk.
Fuck, the whole time too.
Man, also heartbreaking, man, when at the end with Baelor. Because when he was there, I was thinking, oh shit, he didn't die after all. I was thinking, oh, he didn't die. But then, the way he was standing and took his helmet off, and blood at the back of his head, and there's a hole in the back of his head. Oh yeah, there it is. And then he dies. I was like, shucks, man, damn, he was a good man.
Yeah, he was a mean character. That was unexpected, but when he started talking about his head there, like, oh, my head feels like wood. I was like, oh, the head injury? And then they took the helmet off. Like, oh my gosh. No!
Yeah. That was, to me, that was the standout scene, that final one, because Baelor's death, I thought he might be okay as well. And then Dunk's reaction as well. So he's like, it's not just because it's shocking, but because of what it does emotionally as well. Because when Baelor falls, you can feel the tone shift instantly in the show. So there's no sort of triumphant music, no heroic framing. It's a bit messy, tragic, and it's quiet. And then you get Dunk, he's breaking down because, this guy stood up for him. And, without him, he probably doesn't get that trial by 7 that he needs. So it's because of Baelor's honor. And you can see Dunk, he's apologizing, he's blaming himself, he's feeling responsible. And that moment's powerful because it shows the weight sort of unintended consequences in some ways. Because, even though Dunk didn't sort of swing that fatal blow, he stood up for what he believed is right. And yet someone honorable still ends up dying because of it. So that can be the cruelty of Westeros in this sort of this Game of Thrones universe. So I think what sort of really lingers for me afterwards, because I heard you guys speaking about it a bit last week, is really the legacy question. Because Baelor, he was the next in line to be king, but he represents sort of a version of power that is, he's quite compassionate, he's fair, he's measured. Now, he didn't have to intervene in this trial of 7. He chose to. It's his kindness that got him there. And that was kindness, not weakness. It was his courage. So, when Dunk breaks down, it's more than guilt. It feels like the loss of sort of a mentor figure that he didn't know he needed. You think about Dunk, he has this real idealistic view of knights in his own mind. So when he called for help last week and he's asking for someone to stand up for honor, it was Baelor. It was Baelor who answered that call. So I genuinely wonder how much Baelor's honor will shape Dunk moving forward, because we're already starting to see he's merciful. You touched on that before, Bob. And sometimes that one act of grace can change a person forever. So I wonder if that could be the moment in a world where, it's quite a brutal world, quite a cruel world. Baelor's example, that might be the internal standard that Dunk tries to live up to, even if it costs him. So, I just like that scene. It wasn't just about death. It felt like a passing of a moral torch, because Baelor was the one. It was a really heartbreaking scene, but I think it will do a lot to shape who Dunk ultimately becomes on his adventures.
Well, the name of the episode's in the name of the mother, right? So that's one of the vows is when they say, in the name of the mother, I charge you to defend the young and the innocent. So that was Baelor's whole thing, was he was feeling Duncan's vibe, and that he's actually just trying to do what a knight's supposed to do. He's defending an innocent person. And
also in the flashback, when Alan comes out and saves him, the young, innocent.
Yeah. That's what Alan's done, right? It comes out swearing it to keep in the name of the mother, leave that boy alone.
Yeah.
Or whatever else he says as he's killing those dudes. So these are people who are trying to uphold those vows that they've taken to become knights. And Alan, in his funny way, is sticking to it, and Dunk has, and then Baelor has as well. And so, like what Stacey was talking about with the moral shift, you kind of don't really know where we're at the moment, because Maker now becoming the heir, and he's just seen his son kind of embarrassed. What's going to happen with Dunk? Like, is he still going to get executed or jailed, or because he's come out of this trial by the 7? There's probably enough people there to say, no, he's survived, he's innocent, because we did a trial and he's come out of it, having been the victor. So I don't think they could exact their revenge on him immediately, but like you boys have alluded to, it'll probably come later on, and when this series expands.
You're right about that. Because Dunk will have the backing of the people.
I think
He
just
really
also
has.
just thinking back on Baelor's death. So one detail which was in I think episode 4 last week was when I think Daron is his name, Egg's older brother. You know, he's got those sort of visions like Helena in House of the Dragon. So he has this prophetic dream, and he describes seeing a dragon lying dead on top of Dunk. So naturally, I thought I was going to be that brother he's fighting in the Trial of Seven, Arion. I thought, oh yeah, this is the dragon that's going to be dead on top of him. No, he's volatile, he's dangerous. He seems like the obvious villain. If anyone was going to die sort of in connection to Dunk, I thought, oh yeah, this is the guy. So the symbolism of the prophetic dream, I thought that was quite straightforward. But this episode that flipped it quite dramatically. And the dragon, it wasn't Arion, obviously, it was Baelor. So that sort of twist is sort of classic Game of Thrones misdirection with some of these prophecies that we're seeing. You know, you think the prophecy points towards punishment or victory, but it feels like it's pointing towards, you know, tragedy. Because Baelor, you know, he dies intervening in Dunk's trial effectively. And, you know, we saw that at the end, he collapses onto him. And that fulfills that vision and that prophecy in the most heartbreaking way possible. So you sort of see a couple of things about this current world. So, you know, the prophecy, it's not quite literal as we sort of seeing, and that's happening in House of the Dragon as well. And sometimes these outcomes, they just feel like really unjust. So I feel like it just adds another layer of guilt onto Dunk and his character. You know, we saw it at the end. He felt really responsible for, and he was apologizing, poor dude, for Baelor's death. But just the idea that maybe it was foreseen and maybe it was a bit inevitable, you know, that could be a bit terrifying as well. So, unfortunately, the dream wasn't about a villain falling. It was just a warning, you know. Sometimes the good guys are dying as well. So that sucked.
Especially in Game of Thrones, bro, all the time.
Yeah,
Can't have any of those kind of characters in there. They just die.
I think, you know, the biggest takeaway for me in this whole series is being educated about what it takes to be a knight in this Game of Thrones universe, and it's making me want to rewatch the Game of Thrones again, just to go in with that knowledge of, you know, the name of the mother and all those stuff the knight needs to do, and just look at all these knights and see if they're doing it, like see if they're being true to being a knight.
You know what's funny? I have been rewatching the Game of Thrones. Yeah, I think I'm doing a bit of season 7 and a bit of season.
It starts to go downhill.
Yeah.
How many seasons? There's eight.
Yeah.
Oh, it's eight
is
seasons,
probably the
is it?
worst.
Was it 8 or 7? I don't know.
But in some ways, it's good because, like in Game of Thrones, they were having casual conversations and they'll bring up Dunk the Tall and his exploits, sort of just as casual. And when you've watched it and you haven't read the books and you don't know the lore, that just feels like a standard conversation. Not till you get shows like this that you realize, wow, okay, so that's what they were talking about. And they reference House of the Dragon a little bit. I think, Bob, you talked about Maester Aemon is actually Egg's older brother. And he talked about that in Game of Thrones as well, how he had a brother Egg, blah, blah, blah. So it all ties back, you know, that conversation that Maester Aemon has with Jon Snow at the time sort of just seemed like a random conversation. But when you tie it back into the lore and these other shows, you think, okay, so that's how that all ties in. And that's why I was sort of like you, Bob. I knew that Dunk is going to achieve great things. I knew someone was going to die, and it's not going to be Dunk, it's going to be someone else except for him. So, yeah.
Obi-Wan Kenobi, bro, in Phantom Menace. He survived 3 more movies.
Oh, sweet boys. Was there anything else you guys want to touch on the episode?
Cool. Sorry, Bob.
No, I was just going to say that, you know, the King's Guard, bro, those guys are elite of the elite. So I'm amazed that those guys even lasted as long as they did, trying to just keep Duncan one-on-one with Arion, because it didn't need to go that way. Like, all those guys that were fighting their own battles that were kind of off screen and were happening behind the scenes, they held up, man. And Raymond, did he survive? I don't know. I couldn't see if he survived, but they had those 2 or 3 Kingsguard there, and those guys are badass knights, man. So they did well.
Says here in the recap, 2 died. Harding and Beesbury. Who are they?
Oh, the 2 randoms that spoke up at the end and were laughing at them spewing up.
Oh, Harding's the one eye guy.
Isn't he still alive?
I reckon he would still be alive. That guy seems too
skillful.
Yeah.
Like he's like a weathered down knight, but he's still good.
Yeah, I think when you talk about the King's Guard, that's why it was important Baelor was there, because they can't hurt him. So he's just like, hey, you guys just sit on the sideline and watch. They've got to obey those commands. So otherwise, you're right. They probably would have, if it was any other knight, and then the King's Guard can do what they want and fight their proper style, they probably clean them up quite easily. So I think Baelor being there was a crucial part of it. And remember last week he said, he was just there, sort of like a royal family guy, waved to the crowd and all the rest of it. So he says, I didn't bring my armor. I just wear my son's armor for the battle. Like if you're 2XL t-shirt and you wear XL t-shirt and it's a bit tight, that's one thing. If you battle to the death and the armor doesn't fit, that's a different ballgame. I wonder if that was the crucial point that got him killed. The armor wasn't the correct fit. Because if he had his armor, like you mentioned, Bob, the amount of hits that Dunk took, but because that was his armor purposely fit for him, it felt like it could handle it because it was in tune with his body shape and all the rest of it. So I wonder if Baelor's armor being the wrong size might have played into his death unknowingly, because that was his son's armor he was wearing.
It's nice if me and you were the King's Guard on that side, and one of our bosses were on the other side. Man, I know me and you will be like, no, don't let the 2 bosses fight each other. Let the 2 brothers fight each other, and we'll go for the other guys.
Exactly. They could have won it, eh? They could have killed Dunk early, and then that's it. So,
Oh, I think Raymond must have fought his cousin, eh?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they hate
I think
each other.
that's when the Fossway house splits because of like their cousins, and then they change their sigil. One goes green apple, one goes red apple.
Oh,
True.
nice.
That does explain a lot.
Does that say that's for this episode? Cool. Yeah, man. Last episode, final episode next week called Tomorrow. Be looking forward to that. Be a shame. It's a shame, eh? Because there's nothing else after that. So I think House of the Dragon will be on end of this year, I think, or sometime second half of this year. It's been a 2-year wait. Probably have to rewatch season 2 to see where we're at.
yeah, that's right.
But no, man. Yeah, man. We'll be back next week for the last episode of Knights of the 7 Kingdoms. All right, that's me, Cams, and that's Stace, and that's Bob, and that's Eric. We are the Channel 135 podcast, and we out.
So-
Yeah.